February 18th, 2020. Joe here at Simple Life Show, where the simplest answers are usually the best. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all the good social media stuff to keep the irrational voices in front where they belong. The Nevada caucuses are at the door, and Bernie Sanders is leading the way. What is really the news is that Bloomberg is in second place. Bloomberg, the same person who did not qualify for any previous debate, the same person that did not take part in any other previous primary, is now suddenly in second place. Why is that? It's because Bloomberg is spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on advertising. And he is trying to be relevant. He is trying to be fresh. But this is unfortunately working. Now, how far this really goes is really up to the Democratic voters out there and how steadfast they are with this whole process that we have of nominating a presidential candidate. So Bernie bros out there, we all know that they are very passionate about their candidate, regardless if he had a heart attack or not. They don't care about that. They don't care about his romancing the Soviet Union and the Cold War and communism and all that kind of stuff. They don't care that Bernie Sanders is an avowed socialist. Most of them don't even know what real socialism is. When you ask your typical Bernie supporter what socialism is, they will inevitably point to Sweden or any other Nordic country, Scandinavian country, and say, well, that's an example of where socialism succeeded. And it's not. A lot of these, we've talked about this so much before, and I know that you might be inundated, and it's kind of like beating a dead horse, the whole socialism type thing, the whole Scandinavian argument type of thing. It's not really even an argument anymore. It's been debunked. It really has. The only real socialist nations, there's plenty of them, but the big ones are North Korea, Vietnam, Cuba. Those are socialist nations. Socialist nations are where the government controls all of the means of production. And that's it. That's what socialism is. And the people are supposed to reap the rewards of that because, hey, they don't have to really do anything. They work in the factories. They work for the state. Everybody's basically a government employee. There's no privately owned businesses. Now, there might be some, but it's very, very limited, and you have to have permission from the government. But the government usually does not allow private citizens to run their own businesses. That is contrary to the whole goal of socialism. It's all about the community. The community is supposed to own everything. But the community is really the government in a socialist society. So Bernie bros really do not want, and every other person that avows says that they are socialists, do not want a socialist society. At the end of the day, they simply don't want that. What they want is they want more transfer payments into types of programs that they agree with, such as free college, free health care, and so forth. Yes, we do have social safety nets in this country. Some people call it socialism, but it's not. It is not socialism. Refer back to my last definition. These are transfer payments, and they are paid for by taxpayers who make decisions in some part on where this money goes. The state is elected, and representatives of the state are elected by the voters. They can always be voted out. So the people, in other words, they do have some sort of voice on where this money goes. If they don't want a whole bunch of entitlement programs, they usually vote for Republicans. If they want more entitlement programs, they vote for Democrats. That's how this country works. In a socialist society, there are no two parties. There's one party and one dictator, and it's fascist. But they want to rail against the fascist, right? But they are railing against their own cause. This is not what we are as a country. But Bloomberg and his billions of dollars is attempting to buy this election. And Bernie bros are not, they're not very happy about that, but they're not scared either. The Atlantic here says the irregular Democrats aren't worried about Bernie. Who's really worried about Bernie? It is not the people that are going to eventually vote. It's not the progressive. It's not the moderates or anything like that. The people that are worried are the people that are in the elite of the Democrats, the people who are in the know, the people that simply do not care about these people. Because if they did, they would be voting basically and supporting the leader of the candidates right now, who is Bernie Sanders. But they're simply not doing that. And they're getting their marching orders, or they're giving their marching orders basically to the news media, who is basically just mimicking, and they're parroting everything that they're told to say. But we know that's what the news media does anyway. So The View, which I'd never recommend watching. The View was talking about this earlier. Here's a clip of that.
Is he now going to be the biggest target on the stage? I mean, everybody's poop is coming out now. This is, because I mean, think about it. People of a certain age, I mean, we had a whole show called Mad Men that dealt with the stupid stuff, particularly, and, not only, but particularly that white guys of a certain age believed and said. So it's not a surprise to me. Still do. Well, yeah. I mean, it seems like, can you throw a stone anywhere and find somebody who hasn't stepped in it? I mean, look, it's just...
I think you can throw a stone and find someone with less oppo because he's been in public office so long. I am so glad he's finally going to have to man up and be on the debate stage because I want to see how he performs against the other candidates. And so far, he's sort of been getting by on just doing ads, releasing statements and doing rallies, which is like... I think it's kind of a cheap way to run for president because he's opted out of all the primaries, however you feel about the process. I think the idea that Mike Bloomberg is just going to sail into this and land really easily, and he's just going to be the nominee, and all of these activists on the far left. Yeah. Well, I think he and his supporters, and his supporters in the media, are acting like he's just being anointed. He's an easy billionaire, and he's going to walk right in, and it's going to be easy. And some of the stuff I saw over the weekend, and some of the comments he's made, and I don't want to get in your way, Sonny, but I believe you have a clip that I was shown that is particularly, at least problematic, I think, for most Americans. I think this is going to be a lot harder than he thinks it is. Yeah.
That's true. And I rarely ever agree with McCain, and I rarely ever agree with anyone on The View, but they do have a point. At least she does have a point now. That Bloomberg does have a real fight on his hands, and the people in the media are trying to make it seem like Bloomberg is just the obvious choice because Sanders is not the right choice. Now, I am a conservative. I'm also a libertarian. I believe in the rule of law, and I also believe in capitalism, but I think that Sanders should get the nomination because I also believe in democracy. I believe that people on the Sanders side, they deserve to have their man run. Someone told me at one point, and you might have heard this before too, is that if you want to dissuade other people from bad ideas, give the bad ideas their time in court. And the elite on the DNC side, the pundits in the media are not, they simply do not want to allow Sanders to get the nomination. And those that are on the Trump side, which I am, but I also am still a Democrat. Even though I am a Republican, a registered Republican, I still hold a lot of Democratic values. I hate what has happened to the Democratic Party, and it's an embarrassment. But those that are on the side, the millennials, the Generation Xers, and even some that are, even some of the boomers who are still progressive Democrats, which I am not. I am a conservative Democrat, if I'm anything. Those people, those side, they deserve to have whatever candidate they choose to run against Trump. If they believe that Sanders can beat Trump, then they should have their guy fight for them. Sanders is not going to get another chance at this. We all know that. He's on his last leg, just like Joe Biden is. Joe Biden's pretty much out of this. We can pretty much assure you of that. that Joe Biden is out. It's either Sanders at this point, Buttigieg, and I don't even know why people are still not talking about Buttigieg. He's still polling pretty well in Nevada. Now, he's probably not going to win Nevada, but he's still polling pretty well. So he's still a force to be reckoned with. But I think overall, at this point, a lot of people are really siding with Bernie Sanders. He is leading by wide margins in Nevada. Now, like I said before, and what a lot of people are saying, it really depends on what happens on Super Tuesday. That is going to form the majority opinion on where we are going to go. Now, could there be a brokered convention? Yes, there could be. There hasn't been one in decades, but if this happens, it's going to be complete chaos. And it's going to sever the party. It's going to completely destroy the party. I know that there's a lot of Trump people out there that are really wanting that to happen, but I don't want that to happen. I want there to be a fair contest. I want Bernie Sanders to get the nomination for one reason and one reason only, because we have to actually deal with this socialism type of thing. Because there is a misconception of what socialism is. The real socialism of Cuba, of Vietnam, of North Korea, and all these other countries that are out there. There's so many countries out there that are socialist countries. We will never be a socialist country by definition. Even if Bernie Sanders won the presidency, we would never be a socialist nation. We would have a lot more transfer payments, yes. Inflation would go through the roof, probably. Debt would go way through the roof, probably. And we would probably, it would probably deep six the entire economy. But it doesn't mean that we would ever be socialist. We don't have any socialist programs in this country because the state does not run all of these programs, or the state doesn't run all of industry inside of this country. Now, the federal government, yes, it appropriates certain funds for these things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and stuff like that. But these are transfer payments. We don't get anything back. The federal government doesn't get anything back in it. But it puts these things out, and the more we put it out, yes, it's going to obviously do a lot of damage to our economy. But we have to allow these so-called bad ideas to have their day in court so we can progress forward as a nation with the best ideas. We can't shut everything out because we're biased. And I know that might upset some people. But I try to look at everything at the same time. I try to look down the road and I see both sides at the same time. That's the only way I can be rational as a human being. I can't completely reject all of Bernie's ideas. I can't reject all of Trump's ideas either. And there is a reason why a lot of these millennials and Generation Xers and even some of the boomers are, lock in step with Bernie Sanders. There is a reason why we have a problem in this country and we need to solve it. And the only way to do that is to come together, both sides. We can't have 100% Trumpism, just like we can't have 100% Bernieism either. That is just the fact of the matter. Once we do that, we flip the car either way. We go off the cliff either way. MSNBC is having a meltdown over this whole Bloomberg thing, and they were talking about it here recently as well.
I also want to say this, though, really quickly, though, Stephanie. If Donald Trump is the emergency that you say he is, if he is that emergency, and the Democratic Party puts forward Bernie Sanders, and you tell me that you can't vote for him, then it seems to me that Donald Trump isn't the emergency that you say he is.
But then my question to you, Eddie, would just quickly be, when you look at the 2018 midterms, the majority of Democrats that flipped the House were moderates, save a couple. So when you say the Democratic base is far to the left, they weren't in the historic 2018 midterms.
Well, I think what's interesting, I don't like to use the language of far to the left. What I think is that what we saw is that Democratic voters across the board, whether they were progressive or whether they were moderate, understood that they had to turn out in order to flip the House. And what we saw is that progressives in Alabama voted for Doug Jones, knowing who Doug Jones was. Progressives
Wouldn't
in
you say
Virginia.
Doug Jones is quite moderate?
Yeah. Progressives
and
in Virginia, progressives, exactly, voted for
coalition, a broad coalition of progressive Democrats and Republicans. Will those Republican voters vote for a socialist who honeymooned in the Soviet Union, who wants to take health care away from 150 million people, free college education, free student loan forgiveness, free income for everybody, free stuff for everybody.
Okay,
as
it's
far
not
as the
free
eye can
income
see.
for everyone. It's not free stuff for everyone. So we have to rein that in.
No, $60 trillion of new spending that he's
Then I'll
called for.
listen, if you want to say $60 trillion, you can say it. But we can't just look at Bernie Sanders and say free stuff for everyone.
One of the things that can make a big difference, one of the things we need.
So MSNBC is kind of melting down over there. Of course, they are not on the Bernie Sanders camp, and they don't want Bernie Sanders to get the nomination. Yes, Bernie Sanders says that he's a socialist, a democratic socialist, right? But really at the heart of the matter, he just wants more transferism. He wants more entitlements. He wants more money going into the pockets of the working class. I mean, that's really what it is at the end of the day. Is he for state-controlled everything? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if he gets a nomination and he gets on the presidential debate stage, and that will actually come up. I don't know. That is why that we need to talk about this. That is why Bernie Sanders probably needs to get the nomination if he makes it past Super Tuesday, which I think he probably will. And we don't go to a broker convention. Because at the heart of the matter, I don't want the Democrat Party to sever. I don't want it. I want it to bring both parties together again, because that's the only way we can actually go forward. And I know that a lot of people out there are, they're all in on Trump and they just want to completely crush the Democrats, and they call them the libtards and stuff like that. And, they call us the Trumpers. I think that it's really getting played out, and we really need to kind of take a step back going forward into the next 6 to 8 months or so going into the election. And we need to really understand what is really at stake here. Is it really capitalism versus socialism? I don't think so. Because, we have to understand what real socialism is and why we will never be a socialist nation. I think this is all about government spending. It has always been about government spending. We're already spending that much anyway. We're spending a lot of money. The government is spending a lot of money. That's why our deficit is so high, because our GDP is not growing to keep up with it. So we really need to understand, and we need to, the real argument here is we have people on the left that want to spend the government money in other ways, and we have people on the right that have this idea that we're heading down this communist Leninist type of Marxist territory, and that might be true, but I don't think so. I think that America is simply too strong to ever let that happen. Just as much as Trump is not an authoritarian, he is not a dictator, he is not a fascist. Yes, he's a bully. Yes, he doesn't want to. He wants his own way, and he wants to do things. But he is also restrained by the Constitution. He's restrained by the separation of powers and the regulations that are set forth by our founding fathers to rein in that type of thing from happening. And Trump has always backed down. But it doesn't mean he is not going to be boisterous about it. It doesn't mean that he is not going to be loud about it. It's not like he's not going to ever shut up about when he's upset about something. And you could be mad at him all you want about that. But it doesn't make him wrong either. But I think that he does respect the Constitution. And I hope he continues respecting it. But on the flip side of the coin, the people who do support Bernie Sanders are the same people who went to college that are now not able to get jobs. And you could say, yes, that's because they, a lot of them majored in stuff that's not making a lot of money right now. But I would counter with that, college itself is kind of a scam to begin with. That a lot of the courses out there simply aren't designed to give anyone a leg up in their life. That we need to be forwarding more trade schools. We need to be forwarding more IT and stuff like that. A lot of these things that are going to be coming up, we need to transform education. It's not about free college. It's about transforming education. So when people actually come out of whatever schooling they do, they can be more productive members of society. You know, and a lot of people are having that conversation. A lot of the moderates are having that kind of conversation because it's not always about just, you know, going to school and getting a good job and getting that you know, house with a white picket fence and having 2.5 kids. That's not a reality anymore. You can't just simply go to college anymore and you're just secure. We don't live in that world anymore. And the millennials and the Generation Xers and all that, they know that. And a lot of them are upset, and we need to listen to them. We really need to do, and just kind of, you know, putting them to the side is not going to solve the issue. It's not going to make it go away. This is a systemic issue that is something that's wrong with this country right now, and we need to look at it with fresh eyes, and we need to look at it not through red or through blue colored lenses either. This is Joe with Simple Life. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.